Hello, I'm Karl Wells. My guest today is a comedy writer, a comedy performer, an actor, and a filmmaker. And last year, his comedy recording, Existing is Exhausting, was nominated for a Juno Award. It's my pleasure to welcome Gander's own Matt Wright to the program. Hi, Matt.
Hi, thanks.
Good to see you.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you.
So, is existing exhausting for you?
Lately, yeah, that's a pre-pandemic album, so I think I actually jumped the gun a bit.
Yeah, you may have, yeah. The older you get, the more exhausting existing is, I think.
I have been told that, yeah, every year a little bit more tired.
It's not anything you have to worry about yet. So I noticed that you mentioned Newfoundland in your act.
Yeah.
Fairly regularly. Do you ever use Gander in your material?
Oh, you know, sometimes I have. I don't know if I've recorded anything that is about Gander, but I was doing a little chunk on the Come From Away side of things a little while, and just kind of what it feels like to have your town turn into a musical.
Yeah, you would have been there. You would have been there.
Yeah.
9/11.
I was in grade 8 or 9.
Yeah.
So like my parents are both teachers, so they were.
Yeah.
They were, you know.
Face and eyes into
very much so.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was it like growing up in Gander?
It was good. Played a lot of street hockey, very flat roads.
It's very level.
Pretty, you can land a plane wherever you want.
That's why they put an airport there.
Oh, for sure. So yeah, that was good. It was, you know, small enough that it's not overwhelming, big enough that, you know, you got a McDonald's.
Yeah. Do you still have a movie theater there, though?
No, and someone should jump on that, because every town should have a movie theater. And I know smaller places than Gander that have a movie theater.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's tough time to open up a brick and mortar anything right now.
Yeah.
But every place should
But
have
I'm sure there was a movie theater there when you were growing up.
There was,
right?
the Fraser Mall Cinema,
yeah.
which is now, I don't want to get on your show and slag the Fraser Mall, but it has, there's some stuff that's not there anymore. I remember I went there going to the DMV when I went home, because I'll go, if I'm going home, I'll go to the DMV there, just because there's less traffic and less time. The DMV is always a good thing. But anyway, it'd be nicer to go for a movie.
Yeah. So when you went to movies as a kid, did you look up at the screen and think, one of these days, I'm going to be up there?
Oh my God, no, you know what's funny? I don't really remember what I thought about any of that. I liked being in plays and stuff when I was younger. I think when you're from a bit of a smaller place, there's an element of like, oh, that doesn't happen here.
Yeah.
You know, but it does, you just don't realize.
Yeah. I always wondered whether Brad Payton, who's also from Gander, thought when he went to the Fraser Cinema.
Yeah, I'm going to direct The Rock.
I'm going to direct one of these days.
Yeah, he's done some incredible things. But I remember when I was in Gander, I don't know who directed this, but I know Mark Krish and Alan Hago were both in it. And it was a war movie they were in, I think, called Above and Beyond. Okay, good. I'm relieved that I didn't get that wrong. Yes. Right. So, yes, I was in that when I was in grade 10. No, I was an extra.
Oh, you were an extra?
So I wore a big woolly war uniform and just wandered around and like pretended to see planes and be like, oh, a plane, you know, extra stuff.
There's a wrench.
Yeah.
Better pick that up.
Yeah. Wrench something. So yeah, I did that, and I remember it was so hot. I was just like, wow, okay, this is insane. Yeah. Just on a hot Gander day, not Gander Day specifically, but in an old-timey military uniform, and I was like, wow, show business.
I'm not sure if that was a movie or a miniseries. I can't remember, but it was well done. It was very well done. And there was a documentary that was made at the same time that kind of went, I know when CBC aired it, they aired the documentary first, which kind of gave the real story, and then they aired the drama, which starred Richard E. Grant, I think. Cool. And yeah, Hawko was in it, and Mark Krish, bunch of Newfoundlanders. Pete Soucy, I think.
Yeah.
Another Gander native.
Yeah, he is, yeah. He used to go to my shows really early, like a couple of years in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he actually, I think Pete used to produce a comedy festival here.
He did, so that's like just...
Before you got going, or?
I think my first year I was in comedy was the last year he was doing that. I think that's missed for what it's worth. I remember I took a workshop there.
Yeah, I went to, and I remember guys like John Sheehan were in it, and
yeah, John Sheehan, Sarah Walsh did it.
Yeah.
I think Steve Patterson used to come here and do it. So
yeah, great idea. Somebody should pick up on that once we get through this.
Well, we got to get the movie theater in Gander first.
We've got to get the movie theater back in Gander.
And then we'll work on the comedy festival.
I think we should start a petition.
Oh, for sure.
Movie theater for Gander.
I'm into that.
So what kind of plays were you in when you were in high school?
Oh, man. I did a bunch of whatever they were doing for the most part. I was just like, I just like doing anything at that point.
Probably all really serious stuff, was it?
I hope. No, not all really serious. I remember one year in grade 8, we did Charlie Brown. We did the Charlie Brown Christmas, and I remember like we did that skating scene, and I was rollerblading around the Gander Arts and Culture Center, so that was pretty cool. There was a bunch of serious stuff. We were in grade 12. We did the Breakfast Club. That was really fun.
Oh, like a script of the movie?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
We just kind of took it, and we had a great drama program there. I have very good memories of that. And we did 12 Angry Men at one point.
That's heady stuff.
It was, and I was in. I think I was in grade 10 then, and I don't know if I had the emotional capacity to even process it, but maybe still don't.
Yeah. So your parents are from Greenspan, right?
Yeah.
And you spent quite a bit of time growing up in Greenspan, I assume, in the summertime?
I was supposed to be there last weekend, but the hurricane, we were supposed to drive it on Friday, and the weather got the best of us. But yeah, we still spend a bunch of time there, go cod jigging, and just go around, wander between each other's houses and drink.
So for like a kid from Gander, Gander's reasonably urban, I guess, if you want to use that word, to go from Gander to Greenspan must have been quite the contrast. I mean, there must have been all kinds of stuff you did in Greenspan that you couldn't do in Gander.
You know what's funny? I think at that age I was mostly just riding bike regardless of where I was. I think if you put me in Greenspan or New York City or the Moon, I just would have rode around on a CCM ice bike. Yeah. I think that was what I was doing then. But now I have a bigger appreciation for it now that I'm a little bit older and being like, whoa, it's so pretty here. It's crazy. Yeah.
Where do you think you got your comedy sense from? Did you inherit it from your parents, or are there funny people in your family?
Oh yeah, for sure, man. And my brother and sister too. It's just like a lot of time just sitting at the table, kind of watching them, kind of, go at each other and have a laugh. And I think a lot of people in our family are very willing to laugh at themselves, which I think is a very important comedy skill, or life skill, actually, I should say.
Oh,
so
sure,
probably a lot of that, and not too much, just not trying to take ourselves too seriously, I think is always important.
Do they do impressions, your family? Like,
oh my God.
my mother was always doing impressions. It didn't matter whether it was a male, female, she just did everybody.
Like of famous people or of people in your family?
Oh yeah, like, Jackie Gleason and stuff like that.
Awesome. My family would do stuff every now and then. They'd be like, we're going to do a skit. And that would mean that they would just go upstairs and put on the weirdest clothes they could find and like dance. There was not a lot of plot or anything to it, but yeah.
So when you were in high school and thinking about career and what you were, going to do with your life, did college or university figure in there, or what? I mean,
I did business school,
like when
actually.
you were in high school, did you just say, I'm going to be a stand-up comic?
No, there's not. I didn't. A lot of things like that you just didn't really think were an option. And then even now, I'm like, well, I'm very fortunate to even be able to do that. But no, I was just like, I don't remember who told me, but they were like, business school is versatile. And that's what I did. And I did not like it at all. But I did do it, and I finished it. And then I started working, and then I was like, okay, and I just started doing open mics at Yucks and started picking up work. And I remember writing down, being like, I need to make it so more of my money comes from this rather than, blank job I was working at the time. So that was always a goal. And I was like, okay, let's get the money coming from the comedy direction, just because it's better. And frankly, I was better at it.
Don't be fooled by the fact that I'm wearing a suit. I'm very poor. See a lot of people going into bars, just throwing their money around, making it rain. More of a drizzle and fog kind of guy. I got a call the other day, and I picked up, and they said, "Hello, I'm looking for Mr. Matt Wright." I was like, this does not sound like someone I know. They're like, "I'm calling from Bell Mobility to tell you that you have an outstanding balance." And I was like, "Thank you." I may not have a lot of money, but it's balanced exceptionally well. I wanted to put a stop to this conversation, so I was like, "Well, you have an outstanding accent. Have a nice night. Goodbye." I have a new goal now in my life, and I just want to be as good as I look on my resume. That would be ideal. Like, I have so much stuff on there. It's just like a highlight reel of your entire life. Like, I've got on my resume that I finished in the top 5 percentile in the Pythagoras math competition. In the entire country. And that's true, but I did that in grade 4. But I haven't been able to do anything to knock it off yet.
Did you have any comedy heroes or mentors in your life? Or mentors of any kind, I guess?
Well, like Mitch Hedberg, I was just obsessed with Mitch Hedberg as a kid. Like me and my mom and dad would drive around anytime we'd be on a road trip. He has like 2 albums. He died of an overdose, I think, at 33, so he doesn't have like a big clump of work. But I listened to those 2 albums I could do off the top of my head, and just used to drive around and laugh. So that's like the biggest. That's like the biggest. In terms of comedians.
Did you like memorize the material and do it yourself, or?
You know, it's funny, I did to an extent, and then there was a night in my first couple of years of comedy that everyone got to, it was like a Halloween thing, so you would dress up as a comedian and do someone else's act, and I did that once, and that was the only time I've done that, so that was kind of interesting. And that was the first time my parents ever saw me do stand-up. And I was there like wearing a wig and sunglasses, and they were like, "Oh no." They didn't say "oh no," but I'm sure they felt "oh no."
What have we done?
Yeah, well, it wasn't their fault. That's on me. I can't blame that on them. This is my fault entirely.
Yeah. Well, so what was the first time you actually did stand-up and went out and did it as a pro? What was that like?
Oh, that's interesting. As well.
Or somebody trying to be a pro.
Well, that's probably an easier question to answer, because they're kind of 2 separate things. But like the first time I did it, I was in this contest that anyone could enter that they did at the old Yuck Yucks over there on Kenmore Road.
Right. Yeah.
Which is that club was so great. I wish it was still a thing.
Me too.
And the guys who ran that were, I owe those guys a lot too, frankly. But yeah, I went up and it went very well my first time. I did good in the beginning, and then I did good at the end, and I sucked in the middle, which is the way to suck if you wanted to suck. But then the second time I did pretty good, third time I did pretty good, and I was like, wow, I might be able to do something with this. And then my 4th set, I think John Sheehan actually brought me out to do a fundraiser that he was doing for at the firehouse. And I bombed off my ass. And it was glorious in hindsight, because it's just good to have that, like, okay, one.
You got that under your belt?
Yes, and one, I am not invincible. I will take my lickings like everybody else. And 2, that can happen and you will be fine.
So I'm curious, when you bombed, did you walk off stage and think, that's it, I'm never going to do this again, I can't cope with this, right?
No, I felt very equipped to cope with that. I shouldn't mind that. I've lost before, I'll lose again. I don't mind that. Now I've gotten actually a bit more diligent with, I just record everything I do now, or every set I do, and I'll listen to it and be like, why didn't this? And a lot of the time, I'll be able to be like, oh, that's why. So that's kind of a
Okay.
part of it, just to do the game tape. And
Yeah. I was going to ask that. How do you hone your material and make it, better and better and better, or one, an act that you put together? And so you listen, and I guess where they're not laughing, you cut that out and put in another joke, or how do you do that?
sometimes I can be immensely stubborn. And the worst thing that can happen is if you do
Oh,
something.
damn it, this is funny.
Yeah, yeah, you can say
They
that.
will laugh.
And you do have to have part of that it's like, well, I trust that this is something. And sometimes you're right, but sometimes you just have to do cuts.
maybe
But I
it's-
just try to, I always have a big belief in just write way more than you need and then just cut a ton. And then it's like, okay, well, all this stuff that I cut, maybe I can make that good later. And then when I'm going to record, like when I'm doing my album now, I'm just like, okay, so what works now? Because I'm going to do that. And then the other stuff is just like,
Sometimes I guess it's in the delivery, too. Sometimes if you change the delivery,
yeah.
you'll get a laugh.
And sometimes doing stuff in the right order. Like there's some jokes that if you're only doing like sometimes you'll do a 7-10 minute spot, and it's like there's not enough time to build up a rapport to dive into something a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about, you do this bit about croutons on a Caesar salad.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I laughed my, A off listening to that. It just struck me as being really funny.
Oh,
I
thanks.
like croutons, by the way, on Caesar salad.
Yeah.
And what I find interesting is that you took something that's pretty mundane, croutons on a Caesar salad. And by the way, the catch is you think that croutons are stale bread, and why would anybody want to spoil a perfectly good Caesar salad by
Sure.
putting stale bread on it?
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking, you got a big laugh when I listened, because this is on Existing,
it's on my
and
album, yeah.
Exhausting. And you got a big laugh for that. And I was thinking, I bet 90% of the people in that audience like croutons on their Caesar salad.
For sure.
But they find this funny. And then I'm thinking, why is that? Like, is it because of the way you deliver the material, or we just kind of think, yeah, it is weird, but yet I like it?
Yeah, well, there's a couple things about that. One is that I also kind of like them. I don't hate them as much as, and you kind of come to realize that, but you kind of can't be like, so I don't really like these things. Like an audience wants to hear you kind of step into an opinion on something, where it's like, I'm 33 years old, my opinions are always changing, and I hope always kind of will. So a lot of people do take stand-up more, literally. I mean, that's a very harmless example of that. But sometimes you'll kind of try on an opinion just because it will get you to a joke eventually. But I've always also just, the smaller the thing you can make a joke about, the more I like it. It's all great to, there's like, it seems like there's a lot of people, good and bad, trying to tackle big world issues with stand-up, which I mean is, I commend the people who can do it well, but I've always appreciated just as much, if not more, someone who could just go into something tiny and just like, why are you talking about this? Because it's only comedians who, it's like being a journalist for stuff that no one cares about. It's just like, I can dive into this because everyone else is worried about stuff they probably should be worried about.
Climate change.
Yes. Well, I mean, I'm worried about that as well. Don't get me wrong. I don't have many jokes about it, but I'm very scared. I love small stuff. I think it's my favorite comedy to watch.
Yeah.
And it's,
It's and it must be really satisfying to work on the small stuff and get big laughs.
Yeah, the dumber the thing that you can, and then you kind of have to check yourself, because I want to go to the dumbest place possible always. But then you forget, you're like, no, I need to be somewhere that's relatable to people who live a life.
So is it true that a lady came up to you once and said, you're like a sexy Mr. Bean?
Yeah, that was in Ontario, yes. That's unfortunately true.
I guess that's better than her saying, well, you're like an unsexy Mr. Bean.
Yeah, unsexy in particular, because that would mean that she would have to justify that make it clear that she does not find Mr. Bean attractive. It's not like Mr. Bean is like an undeniable sex symbol. People,
Right.
if you say Mr. Bean, I'm like, I'm taking the insult already. With all due respect to that man who's had a great career.
So when you were nominated for the Juno Award for Existing is Exhausting, that must have put you on a high. It must have felt great.
Yeah, it did. It was like mid-pandemic, so it was kind of, I don't know if this was your experience at all, but you know, at a certain point, everything in that kind of time feels the same. You're just like, well, I'm getting up, I'm going to get on the couch, I'm going to look at my emails and watch TV. But anyway, yeah, that came in, and I found it on Twitter, believe it or not. Did not get a heads up before that it was coming, so that was kind of cool. And then I had a call from one of the other nominees, actually. I was playing video games, and I was like, okay, that was probably a butt dial. And then he called me back again, and he told me, and I was like, whoa. So I woke my girlfriend up, and we had a drink of tequila on a Monday night and FaceTime my parents. And then we went to bed. So, you know, it was stripped of a little bit of the, you know, there's no big award show to go to or anything like that. Just a lot of Zoom.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's very nice that someone appreciated your work, and
Yeah, absolutely.
it was nice. It was really nice.
Absolutely. Now, you're working on another recording now, aren't you? Or
Yeah, so I'm going to record another.
Tell us all about it.
Another album on September 1st at the Rock House. And it's kind of just, I did not pressure myself to write anything during the lockdown and stuff, just because I don't. But I did end up, you know, with doing a bunch of little shows. I was doing little shows at Bannerman in the upstairs room, just like 35 people. And I did a little tour around, you know, the Atlantic bubble, just the same thing, 40 people at a time, and then kind of looked at it and I was like, whoa, I have like 40 minutes of material here that's kind of time specific, which is like not about COVID, but just about what it's like to live in your house, you know, just constantly. So, which is kind of rare for me because I don't do a lot of current event stuff in my stand-up, so I was kind of looked at it and I was like, I'm going to lay this down. And just kind of, so right now I'm just going through all that material, like I said, cutting a lot of it and refining, and hopefully it'll turn into something that's good.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to hear it. So what was it like performing as part of the Just for Laughs Festival in Montreal?
Oh, it was crazy. It's, well, one, the festival itself is insane. There's just so many people there that, like, you know, I bumped into, I mean, I was in an elevator with myself and my girlfriend, and then there was a couple other couples, and then there was another man there, and then there's these two couples there that were having an argument whether or not the man behind us was Trevor Noah. And it was.
It was.
And he was just like pretending to be on the phone. So just like being around that environment so casually, to me, blows my mind. And the show, like, the shows are really great. You get to do a bunch of warm-up shows with like comedians that you admire that you've only seen on television. And then the gala is like 4,000 people. So you get out there and like you just can't wrap your head around it. You're just like, well, I'm going to do what I prepared to do, but this is bigger than comedy is meant to be.
Yeah.
I find the news in general, in America especially, to be devastating. Every day the news is just a horror show. It's just racism and gun violence, terrorism. And I find it hard to watch, especially for me, because I was raised on the news in Newfoundland, which it's different. But it's still the same length. But they have so much less to fill the program with. I grew up on news that it was like, top story. One gas station was robbed. Unsuccessfully. Better luck next time, Rick. All right, moving along. Up next, we have a beautiful man to make his best guess at the weather. Okay, and we have 35 minutes left and nothing else to tell you, so happy birthday, Doris.
There's no way to prepare yourself to be like, what does 4,000 people sound like? It's like, what is half of Gander in a room?
What do they look like when you're on stage? And you're
I don't look at anyone anyway. I'm just like looking at the tops of people's foreheads to feigning eye contact.
hoping they can see you. How do you handle hecklers? Have you ever had to deal with hecklers?
Oh yeah, all the time. Mostly it's not. Don't get a lot of hecklers. Not a lot of people being mean. Mostly just people who are either very drunk and carried away, and mostly people who just kind of feel like they just want to be a part of the show, and just handle, like anybody else, just like person by person.
You've made at least one movie, haven't you? A short film?
Yeah, I made a couple of shorts.
Were they comedies or?
Oh God, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have access to the emotional depth required to do a drama yet. Maybe
Would you like
one
to do
day.
more of that?
Yeah. I've been writing like a horror comedy script. I'd like to do a feature at some point. That's like kind of my next like film
You ever
related
thought about
goal.
writing a sitcom?
Yeah, I wrote a sitcom pilot, and I love any character-based comedy. Is great. I think TV is, even before like we're in this like golden age of TV right now. I've always preferred television. I love the idea that there's these people that you can just watch once a week.
Yeah, and there's so many platforms too, and there's all these streamers and TV networks looking for material all the time. Anyway, Matt, it was great chatting with you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
All the best with the new recording.
Thanks a lot.
We'll look forward. And that's it for this edition of Karl Wells Point to Point. Thank you for watching. See you again next time.